Good evening, I'm Nima Rajan, and this is Forum Daily for Friday, September 2nd. Tonight, Canada targets Russia's oil income in its latest retaliation for the Kremlin's war on Ukraine. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland and her G7 counterparts intend to put a system in place that will limit Russia's income from oil sales. The ministers want to reduce Russia's revenues and, in turn, limit its ability to fund its war in Ukraine, as well as the effect the war is having on global energy prices. It's not clear when the G7 will finalize the plan, and today's statement didn't give any figure for a potential price cap. Meanwhile, Russia's Gazprom is turning off the flow of gas to Europe through the Nord Stream 1 pipeline. It says more repairs are necessary in a key turbine. But the news followed the G7's announcement on capping Russian oil prices. Well, there is some good news for anyone heading out of town for a Labor Day long weekend getaway. Gas prices haven't been this low since before Russia invaded Ukraine in late February. Natural Resources Canada reports the national average retail price for regular gasoline was 161.1 cents per liter yesterday. Gasbuddy.com reports Alberta has the cheapest gas at 140.8 cents a liter. Meanwhile, the Bank of Canada is expected to announce another big interest rate hike next week. This comes amid signals from other central bankers around the world that they won't be easing their fight against inflation just yet. Some of Canada's big banks predict the central bank will raise its key interest rate by 0.75 of a percentage point on Wednesday. This will prompt other lending rates to rise and make it more expensive to borrow money. But some economists fear of serious repercussions. This is because of the high level of business and household debt in the economy. Switching gears to shipments of the latest COVID-19 vaccine designed to target the Omicron variant. Moderna's newest vaccines are expected to arrive in Canada within days. This latest vaccine doesn't directly target the most dominant subvariants circulating in Canada right now, but Chief Medical Advisor Dr. Supriya Sharma says it does include the original Omicron strain, and it provides an excellent immunity boost against COVID-19. The National Advisory Committee on Immunization recommends people over 18 should be offered the Omicron booster if it is available to them. Federal Health Minister Jean-Yves Duclos is also promoting booster shots and says Canadians' willingness to get a booster will be crucial to fending off another COVID wave this fall. Mr. Duclos says more than 90% of Canadian adults have received 2 doses of a COVID vaccine, but only about 59% have opted for a booster dose. Mr. Duclos says those numbers put Canada behind all other G7 countries, except for the U.S. Turning to day 6 of the Quebec election campaign, as François Legault tries to win the trust of voters following multiple broken promises by his party. During the 2018 election campaign, the Coalition Avenir Québec leader promised all residents a family doctor. He failed to deliver on that promise as premier. However, this time he says the party won't promise something that isn't possible. Instead, Mr. Legault and his former health minister say the CAQ will launch a digital health platform, which will direct people to the right health care professional. The Liberals have promised that if they are elected, all Quebecers will have access to a family doctor. Moving to Alberta now, where the lieutenant governor says she wouldn't necessarily sign off on a proposed bill aimed at ignoring federal laws and court rulings. Selma Luckney says she would seek legal advice as required, but says she's compelled to ensure the Constitution is upheld. The Sovereignty Act bill was proposed by former Wildrose Party leader Danielle Smith. She is now running to lead the governing United Conservatives. Ms. Luckney's signature is required to have any law take effect, and though some view her role as purely ceremonial, Ms. Luckney says she doesn't see it that way. Well, it was 24 years ago tonight that Swiss Air Flight 111 crashed in St. Margaret's Bay, just southwest of Halifax Airport. All 229 passengers and crew aboard died. 4 years ago, the lead Transportation Safety Board investigator noted that nearly all of the 23 safety recommendations that came out of the crash had been implemented. Prince Charles is going to fill in for his mother, the Queen, who's going to be skipping the Braemar gathering. This gathering is a popular Highland Games event in Scotland. The 96-year-old has struggled with mobility issues since last year. The Queen is currently at Balmoral Castle in Scotland. She will formally appoint Britain's new Prime Minister there on Tuesday, rather than returning to London. All right, Forum Daily will be right back. And after the break, we're going to take a look at gas prices across Canada. Dan McTeague of Gaswizard.ca joins us for our energy update. Welcome back. Up now, we have Forum Daily's Energy Update with Dan McTeague. Dan is the Senior Petroleum Analyst at Gaswizard.ca, a gas prediction website. All yours, Dan.
Well, thanks for that, Nima. And what a week. Again, this massive roller coaster on energy markets. Kind of nice to know, though, that we've had, four holidays in the warmer weather, each long weekend, May 2-4, Canada Day, Wheat long weekend, the August 1st long weekend, and now the September Labor Day long weekend. And we've always seen gas prices drop. They had to. They were very, very high for a period of time. But I think we're hitting a point where we have to recognize that the traders, particularly paper traders, that's different from the physical traders of oil, gas, diesel, jet fuel, propane, and natural gas, are perhaps exaggerating some of the headlines out there, including the fact that there's no deal that the United States is prepared to sign with Iran. The United States is going through a lot of its strategic petroleum reserve in order to try to prop up these prices. Oil inventories globally can remain very low. We know that there's a war in Europe. We know that Europe is going to face a very cold winter. We know that lockdowns in China won't continue forever. Bottom line is that we're seeing a bit of a head fake caused by people who frankly don't know a whole lot about the oil and gas sector, but have taken financial positions, and they're pretty significant. We call them paper traders. Some call them derivatives. There's a whole pile of names for them. The fact is they're out to lunch, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but you all need a really strong argument for a course in Economics 101. What that's meant, though, across the country is that we're now seeing prices we haven't seen in places like Ontario since the beginning of January. Or mid-January, so $1.47.9 on Saturday. We're going to see prices in Vancouver, $1.86.9. We haven't seen that since the beginning of March. We're going to see Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba stay where they are, pretty much in the $1.30, $1.29, $1.40 range for Alberta, $1.50 in the Saskatchewan, Manitoba range. Of course, we're looking at interior of BC, not moving a lot, still in the 175. And if I trip on over to Quebec, down to 166. So that's a price they haven't seen in a very long time as well per liter. Now, let's go to the Maritimes, because there's a bit of a problem there. I predict gas prices in all those provinces, and we've seen Nova Scotia drop 8 cents a liter. We've seen New Brunswick prepared to do it. PEI will be doing it shortly. But the Newfoundland Public Utilities Board, all those are regulated prices, should have seen an 8-cent drop on Friday, or rather on Thursday. Instead, I guess maybe it's despite my predictions, the PUB and the bureaucrats decided they're going to wait an extra day. Really too bad for Newfoundlanders who've had to pay an extra 8 cents a liter for another day. But here we are this morning, and the Public Utilities Board finally had to throw in the towel and confirm that a guy who's been doing these predictions for about 30 years now for the rest of the country, in fact, for North America, knows a little bit about predictions. Nevertheless, rather than giving myself a bit of a tap on the shoulder, next week, though, I think we're going to see a big reversal, and that could happen as early as Sunday. You're starting to see prices move back up a little bit. OPEC is meeting on Monday. They're not happy with this dysfunctional paper market. They're likely to cut production. Not that they've actually been honest about production and data, but I think that's going to lead next week to an overall increase across the country of about 5 cents a liter for the first week of September. Now, this is traditionally a time when gas prices drop, especially after September 15th, when we shift from winter to summer, rather summer to winter gasoline. So there's a savings of 4 or 5 cents a liter. I don't think that's going to matter a whole lot this time. Because as we're seeing with restrictions and supplies for natural gas, it's pushing up the price of diesel, which is in turn pushing up the price of gasoline. Ultimately, we're going to see a major correction to the upside. So take advantage of these low prices while you can. The way the markets have been behaving, it's almost as if there is no, there is no scarcity of supply of petroleum products, and there is no war in Eastern Europe. So having considered that alone, Other factor, the continuation of the weak Canadian dollar. And while some of our liberal friends like to go around cheering the fact that we've sold a lot more oil, the fact is we're maxed out. We could have done a lot more and brought the price down, and at the same time rescued the Canadian dollar, which now is trading at 131 cents to buy a US dollar. That's contributing about 34, 35, 36 cents a liter to the cost of gasoline and every other single commodity that we consume. Well, that's a wrap for this long Labor Day weekend. Hope you enjoy it. I will have a chance to come back this time next week and firm up where the numbers are heading for September. But for now, this is as good as it gets. Fill up on Saturday. Don't wait till Sunday, and get ready for a pretty significant roller coaster ride ahead. Back to you, Nima.
All right, thanks for that, Dan. Again, that was Dan McTeague, Senior Petroleum Analyst at Gaswizard.ca. He is also the President of Canadians for Affordable Energy. All right, stay with us. We'll be right back. And when we return, we'll have Forum Daily's cryptocurrency and digital asset update. Bobby Del Rio, host of the crypto show The Daily Drop, joins us with his take. So stay tuned. Welcome back. We have Forum Daily's cryptocurrency and digital asset update now. We're joined by Bobby Del Rio, host of the crypto show The Daily Drop. All yours, Bobby.
Thanks, Nima. So any discussion of this week for crypto has to start with the U.S. unemployment rate. So they just announced today that the unemployment rate in the United States has increased to 3.7% from 3.5%, which is really in line with what Jerome Powell over at the Fed has been trying to do, which essentially is to fight inflation. And this is very significant because cryptocurrency markets are increasingly tied to the broader macroeconomic environment. So it's, in a way, it's good and bad. It's not good for people to be unemployed, but in terms of the purposes of the cryptocurrency market, it is what people were expecting. So from strictly an economic perspective, it's probably actually a good sign. Michael Saylor being sued. So Michael Saylor, who is the #1 Bitcoin maximalist in the entire world, is now being sued for tax evasion, which is really in line with what I would characterize as the U.S. government versus crypto. And if you look really since May, when the SEC, Securities Exchange Commission, decided they would increase their crypto unit, you have seen a bit of an attack on the cryptocurrency market. Individuals, corporations, DAOs, you name it. There's really a concerted effort by regulators in the United States to make cryptocurrency safer. Really, it's the Terra Luna debacle that has created this environment where they're essentially cleaning up crypto. And I think Michael Saylor is really the face of Bitcoin at this point. And you see like Coinbase being targeted, you see Michael Saylor being targeted. It's pretty clear that the US government is trying to send a message. OpenSea trading volumes are down 99% in the last 90 days, which is really significant, obviously 99%. So at this point, we're trying to figure out, well, is it because the broader Web3 ecosystem is down about 80%, or are we questioning whether the NFT market is a bubble? So long-term, NFT sentiment is very positive. There's a lot of investment. The technology is changing, pivoting to utility, pivoting to more specific use cases. But right now, in terms of the speculative collectibles market, we're seeing, the Bored Apes franchise, the CryptoPunks franchise. We're seeing the biggest NFT franchises in the world losing a lot of value. And for trading volume to decrease 99% in 3 months is somewhat terrifying, but we're going to just have to keep an eye on that. Jackson Hole last week, Jerome Powell was pretty clear that he will be fighting inflation vigilantly. And again, as I said, cryptocurrency is increasingly correlated to the broader macroeconomic environment. Also of note, Jerome Powell referenced Paul Volcker. For anyone who doesn't know, Paul Volcker is a famous economist who ran the Fed in 1979 to the early 80s. And put interest rates up to just under 20%. And it's worth noting that today's Fed fund rate is 2.5%. So there's quite a lot of room to grow. And, every basis point increase for interest rates really makes things very difficult for the average consumer in the QT department, quantitative tightening. So we have to be very careful in the cryptocurrency market because it does look like a recession is coming. And in the 6 months from now, right now it's being viewed that crypto is likely going to remain stagnant or could dip below. So that's another thing to keep an eye on for sure. Also, September is traditionally a very sort of anticlimactic period for crypto historically. Again, you don't know, but it looks right now that being a crypto investor is going to be a bit like traveling in molasses, slow and steady, but long term, everything hopefully will be fine. BlackRock's announcement to sign a deal with Coinbase shows that institutional investment is coming, but right now, it could be really difficult short term, but just keep the faith. All right, back to you, Nima.
All right, thanks again for that, Bobby. Again, that was Bobby Del Rio, host of the crypto program, The Daily Drop, that's featured on the News Forum Network. Stay with us. After the break, we'll take a look at the major news stories and headlines happening around the world. So stay tuned to Forum Daily. We'll be right back after these messages. Ukraine's president says Russian shelling has damaged houses, gas pipelines, and other infrastructure near the Zaporizhzhia plant. Europe's largest nuclear power plant is situated in a Russian-controlled area of eastern Ukraine. And just yesterday, a 14-member team from the UN Nuclear Watchdog Agency voiced concerns around structural damage to the site. The plant has been occupied by Russian forces, but run by Ukrainian engineers since the early days of the 6-month-old war. The UN team is on a mission to try to help safeguard the plant against catastrophe. Well, violence can also be seen in Afghanistan, where at least 18 people were killed and 23 others wounded in an explosion at a crowded mosque in Herat. The blast that happened during Friday noon prayers killed a prominent cleric. He was known across Afghanistan for his criticism of the country's Western-backed governments. So far, no one has claimed responsibility. All right, well, next door, Iran's Navy briefly seized 2 American sail drone explorers in the Red Sea. This is the latest incident involving the U.S. Navy's new Mid-East drone fleet. State TV reported the Iranian Navy found several unmanned spying vessels abandoned in the international maritime routes. It said it sent warnings to a U.S. destroyer and seized the 2 sea drones. It says that after securing the international shipping waterway, the Iranian Navy released the vessels in a safe area. Moving to Argentina, where a man has been detained after he reportedly aimed a handgun at point-blank range toward Vice President Cristina Fernandez. Argentina's president alleges the man pulled the trigger, but the gun did not fire. Video from the scene was broadcast on local television channels last night. It shows Ms. Fernandez exiting her vehicle, surrounded by supporters outside her home. This is when a man is seen extending his hand with what looks like a pistol, and then the vice president ducks. All right, well, meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden is sounding an alarm about what he views as extremist threats to America's democracy due to the evil force of Trumpism. Mr. Biden let loose on a confrontational speech last night at Independence Hall in Philadelphia. He framed the November midterm elections as part of an ongoing battle for the soul of the nation. He claimed Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans fan the flames of political violence and subvert American democracy. Well, all of this comes as the U.S. Justice Department has released a more detailed inventory of the materials that FBI agents seized after searching Mr. Trump's Florida home. It says there were empty folders marked with classified banners among the contents of 33 boxes, which were taken from Mar-a-Lago on August 8th. It shows the extent to which newspapers, magazines, and other items were among documents that investigators say were marked as classified. This includes at the top secret level. All right, we're staying in the U.S. as rising interest rates, high inflation, and sluggish consumer spending slowed the pace of hiring in the country in August. But American employers still added 315,000 jobs. The unemployment rate rose to 3.7%. This is up from a half-century low of 3.5% in July, which comes as more Americans started looking for jobs. Now, the Canadian jobs report for August is due out next Friday. The UN Refugee Agency says the response to its appeal for $160 million to help Pakistan is very encouraging. But it says more help is needed in emergency funding to help 3.3 million people affected by floods in the country. Floods have killed more than 1,200 people. They have damaged crops and more than 1 million homes. And they have killed more than 733,000 goats, cows, and buffalo. 8 flights are landing in Islamabad as the military-backed rescue operation continues. Turning our attention to Australia, which has announced it will increase its permanent immigration intake as it grapples with skills and labor shortages. Home Affairs Minister Claire O'Neill announced the increase of 35,000 to 195,000 for the year ending June 30th, 2023. Ms. O'Neill says many of the best and brightest minds are choosing to migrate to Canada, Germany, and Britain instead of Australia. A farmer turned mountain guide who has scaled Mount Everest 7 times is thinking about retiring. 47-year-old Sanu Sherpa recently became the first person to climb all of the world's 14 highest peaks 2 times. He has become one of the most sought-after mountain guides since he set the new mountaineering record. But he may quit because his family does not want him to continue taking the risk. All right, I'm Nima Rajan, and that'll do it for your look at national and international news for today. Remember, for more news on demand, you can check us out online and follow us on social media. Take care, Canada. We'll see you next time.